Hello, and welcome to Wonder Years Wednesday. I'm Wendy Sellers, and the kids have nicknamed me the Puberty, and I am on a mission to change the world by stamping out silence, shame, and stigma, and ensure that every young person has a positive puberty experience. And to do that, I developed Puberty the Wonder Years, which is for grades 4, 5, and 6. And during this time of pandemic, we've all been required to learn how to do things a new way. And teachers especially have overnight had to become experts in distance teaching and their students experts in distance learning. And parents and other family members have been required to become instant homeschoolers. And so I launched this series of discussions to help teachers and parents to teach kids about puberty. And so each week we've taken a new challenge that is involved in doing distance learning. This week's challenge we're going to talk about is how do you adapt lesson activities to a distance learning format. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, if you're in a school where the puberty education curriculum has to be approved by your school board, then you always want to get pre-approval for any changes that you are making. So be sure to do that. Once you start working on it, you're not going to be able to teach the whole curriculum that you would be teaching face-to-face in the same way. And so you need to prioritize what you want to teach and what is important to teach. And I would recommend that you do less, but you do it well. And so how do you prioritize the lessons, the topics that you're going to teach, the skills that you're going to teach? Keep a couple things in mind. Number one, if you have data that would support what your students need to learn, then use data to make those decisions. Another way is to do a student pre-survey, and depending on the age of your students, a parent pre-survey to find out what topics they're most interested in learning about at this point in time. Now, if you don't do those things, you can also think about what are the conditions that are being experienced by your students at this point in time. Given the pandemic and the quarantining that's going on, those conditions would really call for us teaching some specific things in sex education and puberty education. One would be relationship skills, because we are all stuck home, right? Living in close quarters with family members and others who are in our household. And so relationship skills will help those family members who are quarantining together to get along better and understand each other. Also, adolescents and pre-adolescents are really invested in friendships, and they're really missing their friends because they're not in school right now. And so relationship skills will also give those students some skills for strengthening and maintaining those friendships at a distance. So relationships would be one topic that would be important to teach right now. Another one would be consent and violence prevention. We know that during the pandemic, domestic violence and child abuse have increased. And that's due to a variety of factors that we won't go into right now. But it's important for young people to be taught about how to recognize abusive situations, how to get local resources, how to report, how to get help for that, and also how to ask for consent before they touch someone or borrow someone's possessions, and also how to give or deny consent if they don't want to be touched or don't want to share their possessions. There will be a link in the comments for a resource that I just learned about. It's called AuntBertha.com, and it is an online website that you can search for local resources for help for a variety of things just by putting in the zip code. So I will provide that in the comments as a link. The third topic that I think would be important to teach right now is about porn and sexting, because our students are all spending a lot more time online these days, as are the adults who are working from home. But as kids are online more and more, they may or may not have the kind of supervision or the controls on their internet access that are needed to keep them from straying into viewing porn and sexting. So teaching about those topics would be very important. And I'll provide a link to some resources for that also. Once you decide how to pick your topics that you're going to teach more thoroughly, it would be important for you to use your implementation fidelity logs to keep track of what lessons you teach and how you modify them for the distance learning format. That way, if you need to teach it this way again in the future, you have a record of what you did. You can also let your administrator know how you taught your sex ed lessons, and you can also keep track of what worked and what didn't. So if you make a modification to a lesson and it goes well, write it on your fidelity log so you can do that again next time. And if it didn't go so well, record it so you know not to try it that way next time. And then also, it's real important, give your students more options about what to learn and how to learn it. They know what they're interested in. They will ask questions that will give you an idea what topics they're most interested in. Be sure to answer those questions to the whole group, not one-on-one, so that all the students can hear the answers. And also, all students can see you being an askable adult, and that it's fine for us to talk about sex ed topics in groups. And this is also a really great trauma-informed approach. When you give students options, they feel more control over their environment during a time when they may not feel like they have much control. So let's talk about some specific activity adaptations. If you are getting ready to teach, it's good practice to assign a pre-reading or a sponge activity before your first lesson. So if you're using Puberty the Wonder Years, you can use the introduction to each lesson as a guide for how to assign a pre-activity. That gets your students thinking about the topic and is a good warm-up for the lesson when you do that lesson face-to-face. Now, in Puberty the Wonder Years, lesson 1 of each grade is the lesson where you introduce the group agreements or guidelines for discussion. And it's really important to have some good guidelines for teaching sex ed. You can assign reading those guidelines as a pre-assignment, and then when you meet with your students in real time virtually, you can have the students discuss what they think each of those guidelines means and expand on those as needed. For the lessons at each grade that are on the reproductive system, a great activity would be to assign the students to watch the videos that explain the reproductive system before you meet with them for class. It's a great opportunity for parents to watch those videos together with their students, if it's age appropriate, of course, and I'm talking about grades 4, 5, and 6 now. And that way you can engage family members and start discussions at home about those topics. So when you're talking about adapting activities, there are a couple different ways to do it. First, there's a synchronous activity. That's an activity that is done together in real time. And we used to do this face-to-face at school. Now we're doing it virtually. So that would include real-time instruction that is instructor-led virtual instruction or a webinar in real time. And all of the learners are engaged at the same time and at the same pace with an instructor. During the synchronous activities, really focus on establishing a positive environment for learning about puberty and sexuality. And instead of focusing on giving students a whole lot of facts to memorize, which they can do offline, focus on that collaborative group climate that is a productive learning environment for all students, and save all the factual readings, video viewings, and homework assignments and worksheets for offline time. So while you are doing synchronous learning, it would be important to focus on skill development with your students. So I would recommend that you use that time to model the skill that you're teaching. Let's say you're teaching refusal skills. You would model the refusal skills so that the students can see what it looks like in real time, including not just the words that are used, but also the nonverbals, the body language. And then you can have the students study what that skill involves and make a video or write a script offline. Have them turn that into you. You can prepare feedback and give it back to the student offline. And then when you're together again online, the students can role play using their scripts or show their videos that show them demonstrating the skill that you learned, such as refusal skills. So that would be a great synchronous activity. The other way to teach virtually is asynchronous activities. And asynchronous are things that the students can do offline, at their own pace, at their own time. It's really great to have asynchronous learning because a lot of people in their house might be trying to use the internet at the same time, which can really bog things down, especially if the parents are working from home and there's more than one student trying to work from home online. So asynchronous activities would include learning that takes place on their own time at their own pace. And it would include things like an online training course or a pre-recorded webinar or webcast. So you can go ahead and pre-record a lesson, especially if it's more about factual things and demonstrating a skill that you want the students to learn, and assign that as an assignment to be done at home at their own pace. They can watch videos or do readings of information at home at their own pace, and they can write questions about it that they turn into you, and then I would recommend that you answer their questions in a synchronous setting so they can all see together how you answer those. Students can also do their worksheets offline. Those do not have to be done online. They can prepare scripts for role plays. They can prepare videos demonstrating how they use new skills that you have taught them, and then turn them into the educator for feedback and correction. Then the students can revise and improve their script or their videos and turn them in again. And then when you're in a synchronous learning setting, you can use those to demonstrate how to do the skill. When the students model doing the skill, it's a very powerful, positive peer influence opportunity. So we want to take advantage of that. So when you're modifying activities and trying to make materials available online, it's important to keep in mind what the copyright considerations might be, of course. And if you're using Puberty the Wonder Years, you have the ability to post the student worksheets and the family engagement materials to a password protected or exclusive website. So you can go ahead and use those. For other curricula, you would want to check with the producer or publisher to see what the copyright allows. If you're using videos, some of the videos are, DVD, they're hard to show remotely. Although I did learn that you can show a DVD on your computer and use Zoom to share your screen, and that does work with students. Other videos do allow you to stream their videos, and you could give the students access that way, but you would have to check with that because usually they charge for that. And so it's always best to check if you want to make sure you're not infringing on copyright. So those are some tips for adapting lesson activities. Do less, but do it better. And prioritize what you're going to teach because it will take more time to do the same thing that you could do face-to-face. And please do post questions or comments in the chat feature in the comments in the Facebook Live. I will be posting some links for some resources to help you with lesson adaptations and some tools that you can use with your students. And you can always contact me if you have questions or comments. So thank you so much for joining this Wonder Years Wednesday, and I look forward to seeing you again next week at 4 o'clock every Wednesday. Now, stay well, take good care. Thank you. Bye.